Hi, hello. Our group's project is on labor unrest. My name is Melvin.
I'm Pragadish.
I'm Andres.
I'm Sven.
All right, to start, we wanted to give a general definition of what labor unrest is, and we defined it as a dispute between management and labor that disrupts normal business. This can include demonstrations such as strikes, interruptions, slowdowns, sometimes even violent disputes. There's been a history of labor unrest in the United States. Around the late 1800s, when industrialization happened, many people were taking dangerous jobs with low pay. Few people had wealth, and a lot of people were dissatisfied with their working conditions. Some of these workers decided to form unions, and these unions aimed to secure benefits for their workers, such as safety regulations, better wages, fewer hours, and freedom of speech and assembly. A lot of companies strongly opposed unions, leading to violent confrontations sometimes, where union or companies would send in strike breakers to shut down these demonstrations.
And this is why we chose labor unrest. So we're mainly inspired by the UC-wide TA strike and the general 50% increases in strike in just 2022. Mainly, we see an increased unsatisfaction in worker demands. For example, the pay, healthcare, other favorable working conditions and benefits in general. We had three main questions to consider going through. One was, how might this insufficiency in worker benefits damage our economy and workforce over time? And are workers in education system suffering from labor unrest more than other fields? And what are some identifiable trends we see in those suffering, for example, class, geographic location, or race? And first, we'll talk about the steel strike of 1919, one of the first strikes in America. And the main goals for this strike was to get better wages, address workplace harassment, get better working hours and working conditions. This strike impacted half of the country's steel industry, which was important because of the great industrialism at that time. This strike was supported by the American Federation of Labor, one of the first labor unions in the US at the time. And some of the longstanding impacts from the increased government interference were the anti-Chinese, anti-Semitic, and the Red Scare tactics used by the government, as well as the propaganda that you can see on screen. And the strike was overall unsuccessful with no union organizations for the steel industry in the next 15 years.
So for the second case we're going to look at is the Memphis sanitation strike, which began on February 12, 1968. Around 1,300 African-American sanitation workers in Memphis went on strike. The trigger for the strike was the deaths of two workers who were killed by a garbage truck due to inadequate safety measures. The workers demanded recognition of their union, better wages, improved working conditions, and an end to racial discrimination. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. supported the striking workers but was assassinated on April 4th. His assassination further fueled the determination of the strikers to fight for their rights. The Memphis sanitation strike had a lasting impact, highlighting the connection between racial and economic inequality and inspiring other workers' movements across the U.S.
So for the third strike, the case that we're looking at was the U.S. postal strike of 1970. So this was kicked off by the fact that postal workers did not have the freedom legally to bargain over wages and were not allowed to advocate for the right to strike, even though wages were so low that many struggled to survive off them. In March 1970, the Senate posted a bill that increases the pay by 5.4%. However, the Congress did not act on this bill for 3 to 4 weeks. And by next week, there was about 200,000 postal workers from New England, California that were on strike. Things got so bad that the president actually sent 23,000 U.S. armed forces to New York to process the mail, but they were unsuccessful. Eventually, the post office department finally started to bargain with the workers, and they earned initially a 6% increase. That summer, they were actually able to secure an additional 8% raise and also the legal right to bargain for wages, benefits, and working conditions.
The next strike is the United Parcel Service, or the UPS strike in 1997. Main goals were to make part-time jobs full-time, better wages, and to safeguard a pension plan. This is called known for being the largest strike of the decade due to it having almost all of the delivery workers over the nation. Almost 100% of the UPS workers who were members of the Teamster Union were involved in the strike. Although it lasted for roughly 2 weeks, it was successful in meeting their their demands. This is mainly due to having a great public support that really helped the strike to be successful.
Here are some of the implications of strikes on labor unrest in general. Labor unrest highlights underlying injustices with our labor system, like insufficient worker wages in respect to inflation, insufficient worker benefits, but also the more frequent and more successful strikes shows the increased willingness to meet those demands, and also a better public opinion of workers, but it also highlights a great dissatisfaction of the labor system, but a willingness to discuss the issues involving it. Also, we see an underlying economic volatility that was highlighted by COVID-19 recessions that led to lots of labor unrest, creating a 50% increase in just 1 year.
Right now, we're going to look at the present day labor unrest, which is the UC strike happened in spring of 2021. Unions began negotiating with the University of California system for better pay and benefits. The workers' demands included childcare, enhanced healthcare of dependents, family leave, and lower tuition costs for international academic employees. On November 14th, 2022, about 50,000 academic UC workers went on strike. On December 23rd, an agreement was reached. Workers were able to secure raises through 2024, roughly 50% increase in base pay and other benefits such as transit passes and partial dependent child health care. There's still much concern among them as to whether or not enough was changed. 1/3 of graduate union members opposed the agreement, citing concerns such as that there was still not enough pay to cover rent, not enough child care assistance, and the fact that there's still substantial fees for out-of-state students.
Several potential solutions and things that worked. For one, gaining a better public opinion. This can be seen from the UPS strike, where they got a great majority of the public support to help them take their case and not to be sort of changed against them. A second solution is building larger support communities around labor unions. Labor unions are the primary point of contact for workers looking to advocate for their rights. And the third solution is to also decrease government interference. This is mainly with when the government providing a propaganda to try to devalue the situation, but also but main solution is to hopefully also decrease their interference with this. In conclusion, there are some identifiable trends among groups that have needed to strike. Historically, groups striking have been comprised of the working class individuals and marginalized groups, such as those mentioned in the sanitation strike. Unions have often cited insufficient worker benefits as the main reason for strikes. Strikes involving critical industries such as education can have significant consequences that are felt both locally and nationally. You see wide strike as an example of many education-related strikes and facing some of the consequences from it. And it still poses a larger issue here in the US. Here are the sources.
Thank you.